Good morning and welcome to Recipe for Success. My name is Nancy Giacalone and my guest today is Sharon Tiger. For those of you that are joining for the first time, Recipe for Success, easy for me to say, focuses on the unique techniques, ingredients that people use to be successful in life and business. Part of the reason I started focusing on this was because I have a huge love of cooking, and I started to realize very quickly that there was always one key ingredient or technique that was really critical to the outcome of any given recipe or dish. And the more I thought about it, the more I realized it was very true in life and business as well. So for the last 3 to 4 months, I've really put my focus and spotlight on women and women who are doing wonderful things in life and in business. And so I'm so happy to have Sharon join me today. She is a tireless advocate for many things. But before we dive into all those, I would love to have Sharon introduce herself, tell us a little bit about her background and what she's doing today.
Oh, well, thank you so much, Nancy, and I really appreciate being included in that group. That's really an honor. So thank you. So background on me. I am an identical twin. I'm one of four. I was raised by a single mom who raised the four of us on, I think it was $22,000 a year. So
Oh, wow.
I think I credit some of my strength and resilience to my mom. She went to school at night, and while we got a great career out of it, but raised us to be independent and emphasized creativity. And it was her who landed me a job in the mailroom of an insurance company when I was 13, because we were a family surviving. There was no lackadaisical summers for us. So.
Right.
I worked in every department of an insurance company. And when I landed in marketing and sales, I think I found my calling. I found my people. And I loved connecting and helping. And so where I am today through, growing up in the benefits industry is really I honed my sales coaching and marketing skills and started to deploy that. Well, I launched my consulting business in 2020 March 2020. And started to deploy that across other industries. And I love it. I love the variety, and I get to work with some awesome companies. One that I'm working with now has a mission that just really resonates with me, which is to make work better for everyone. So it's just been fun.
That's awesome. Well, for our audience that may or may not be listening live, Sharon and I, we were just talking about this. We've never actually had a one-on-one conversation together. Most of our interaction has either been in a group setting or via various LinkedIn conversations and posts. But one thing I want to point out is that we don't always agree. So that's one thing that I really like to have people come on with different perspectives, because Sharon does it, always points things out with a really, with kindness, with respect. And I think that's what I think we're missing a lot of that in today's society is we're afraid to disagree because everybody takes it as a personal attack. And I think disagreeing is healthy because it gives us an opportunity to see other people's points of view. I tend to look at things often through the lens of a business owner, and Sharon, although she is now also a business owner, tends to look at things through the lens of an employee or a workforce. Mm-hmm. So tell me a little bit about that, about, where you're coming from.
Well, first of all, I want to say I think it's great that we can agree to disagree or have different perspectives, because I think that's a beautiful thing. I mean, there's nothing better than being able to understand someone else's perspective and to be able to do that without villainizing someone. So I appreciate that very much. I think I'm a real empath, and I think that I have a way of being able to see it. I guess I've spent most of my time as an employee, so I'm very empathetic to some of the things that happen as an employee. I think one of the biggest challenges maybe that employees are facing that I can relate to, and I think pretty much everybody can relate to nowadays, is what I call empathy fatigue, burnout, zoom out. And, I was I'm kind of going off subject here.
No,
But
that's all the better.
I mean, I guess I'm just thinking from an employee's perspective, some of the things or challenges that they're facing. And I was on a call this week with a client, and it was their whole company. And one of the questions that was posed was, what do you hope for in 2022? And across the board, every single person was saying that they wanted inner peace, some calm, inner and outer peace and calm. And that included me. And I think from an employee perspective, we're all just dealing with so much, and finding time to take care of yourself is becoming exponentially harder. A lot of the coping mechanisms that we have of getting together with friends, that's been taken away with the pandemic. Even getting together in person with your mental health professional, that's been sidelined. So I think employees right now, we're really struggling to manage life and manage everything that's going on, and to be able to keep up and adapt to what's happening in the business world at warp speed. So I'm just empathetic to what employees are feeling and enduring and going through, and they're doing a great job.
So I love that you touched on this, because it was actually kind of where I was going to go next, as far as what is some of the biggest challenges that employees are currently facing. So that's kind of your life challenge. What do you think what's their biggest challenge in the workplace?
I think feeling a sense of belonging, feeling heard, feeling valued is probably one of the biggest challenges in their workplace right now.
So, again, because I'm going to come at it from the standpoint of an employer, and I agree with you. So no disagreement there. But what I've started to notice, because I don't have a big company, I have 7 employees. We're small, but we were distant for quite a long time, and we were working in our own little silos. And I don't think it was as good for us as people thought it was. Mm-hmm. And as we're coming back together, it's definitely more of a sense of team and mm-hmm. a sense of, all for one and a common goal. And while I have no disrespect for work from home or anything else, I don't think it's right for all jobs. And mm-hmm. I think in certain circumstances, it is exacerbating some of those feelings of aloneness that you touched on.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I think work from home feels harder right now. And I do think, some of the things that I've learned through my work this past year is what you mentioned, that everything has to be so intentional when you're working remote. And so some of that connection starts to get missed, or the fact that you have to be so intentional, the interdepartmental communications and any functions that typically there was some friction. I think that friction got worse because the connection in your immediate team tightened up, and you just kind of became a siloed operating unit. And so learning to navigate remote work and to be able to cross-pollinate, collaborate across different departments and functions, it's uncomfortable and it's harder right now, but I think that there is an opportunity to get better at it and make it work. That's just my opinion. I mean, being in person, I'm a people person. I'm an extrovert. I love to get together with people. So I can also understand and sense what you're saying about there isn't anything like it.
There really isn't. And like I say, no, and I think maybe we're going to find at some point a hybrid approach where it's not. I mean, if you're a independent sales rep and you're located, not near a home office or anything, of course you're used to that. That's what you do. But when we're used to working in a collaborative team environment, mm-hmm. I just think it presents more challenges, mm-hmm. just from a communication standpoint, if nothing else. But so again, let's talk about that a little bit more. So we heard all this noise, flack about the Great Resignation and about how terrible employers were and blah, 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 blah. And I think that they tend to get lumped into the same bucket. So if you're an employer, a small employer, maybe you have less than 20 employees, or you do not have the same challenges, opportunities, or flexibility that an employer of 100 employees has, or 2,500. So what would you say would be what would be your advice to a smaller employee as far as really being able to accommodate employee needs and concerns and still effectively run a business?
I guess I think a couple things. I think, for a long time it was about the perks that you can provide as an employer. And of course, the larger the company, the deeper the pockets, the more perks. But really, what I think we've learned throughout the pandemic is that no one really cares about your perks. They don't care about your ping pong table. They don't care about your free lunch. I'm going to go back to that whole sense of belonging and feeling included. And so I think what employers should be striving to do right now is to be that rare gem that creates an environment and learning the skills to create the environment to have an inclusive, collaborative environment where people feel they belong, where they feel heard, where they feel valued, where they understand how important their role is into the success of the mission of the company. Yeah, and just be human. Be
Yeah,
human. Be kind. I have a friend, Robert Shear. He runs a nonprofit called Comfort Cases, really great nonprofit that helps foster kids. They give them suitcases with belongings so that they're not going from home to home with their things in
sure.
trash bags. And he says, be a good human. And of course, someone's at my door, so I'm going to put my headphones on because I'm having furniture delivered today, and
Of
I've
course
waited
you are.
since March. Um, so yeah, just be a good human. Listen, take time to listen, and bend where you can. Be flexible where you can. I've always come from a place of assume good intent, and when you can say yes, say yes.
Well, I love that. So then let's flip the lens and talk about the employee from the employee perspective.
Mhm.
There's been a lot of stress on employers that employees may not understand. Um, Huge stress from getting things done to new technologies to financial situations and everything else that goes along with that. But I do truly believe that employment should be a win-win situation. I believe
Yes.
that the employee needs to win and the employer needs to win. It should be mutually beneficial.
Mhm.
Everybody is getting what they need out of that situation. But I
Yeah.
really think the narrative got a little bit twisted with, oh, employees have all the power. You can do whatever you want. I don't, again, not to be disrespectful, but
Yeah.
what can employees do to be better team members to make themselves happier in their own situation without necessarily saying, well,
Mm.
I didn't like those coffee cups at my last employer. I'm going to go look for something better, because I've heard a
Yeah.
lot of that. So I'm just
Yeah.
really curious, how do we all work together to make it better, the
Oh,
situations better?
well, I mean, yeah, you didn't have the right flavored Pop-Tart in the kitchen.
Yeah,
I think I think it goes both ways. I think that there have been throughout the pandemic, we saw employers who did not stick to their values, okay,
correct.
and they did bad things. Same goes for the employee. You can't, that blanket punishment of categorizing all employers as bad or all employees as bad. That just doesn't work. I applaud you for the win-win because I think that's the only way to be successful is each party has to feel like they're getting something of value out of the relationship or the partnership. So I think for employees, my advice would be to be to be open and be honest, to work on really understanding your strengths and honing those and understanding what you need to feel supported and ask for it. And I think that's the best thing an employee could do is just be open, understand their strengths, and um, ask for the support that they need.
Yeah, I like that. I think so many issues in the workplace and the world in general could probably be cured with just better communication.
Oh yeah, that's what. Who said that? Communication, communication,
I
communication.
don't know, but
It's
it is
true.
true. It is so true. If we just tell people what we need, what we're thinking, then others don't have to assume, because we all know what, what
Yeah,
happens when you assume. It's so very, very true. We don't know what that person is thinking, and we can't expect someone else to know what we're thinking.
So Nancy, I have something funny. I can be really bad at that because I have an identical twin and we can read each other's minds. And they say all the time, it's terrible. It's really hard to be married to an identical twin because they expect their spouse to read their mind. And I do it. So I'm guilty, but
That's
you're right.
funny.
Be able to talk about things. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So I could obviously go on about the workplace, employer, employee relationships.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, forever, because it's just, there's really a lot to it. But I want to make time to talk about your podcast. It's called Let's Not Talk About It, which is dedicated to normalizing discussions of trauma and supporting mental health. Tell us what prompted you to start this. I just want to know more about it.
Yeah. So life is messy. It's just messy. And I think that there was a few things happening when we launched it. I think one of the things that we saw was that employees were really beginning to push back on the whole leave your problems at the door, because that's not realistically, that isn't what happens. You're a whole human. It's not the Industrial Revolution anymore, right? We have women working, managing families, careers, going to school, children that have, your list, the mental load, particularly, I'm going to speak from the perspective of a woman, the mental load for a woman is just tremendous, like the checklist that you're running through at night and so forth. So you have all these things going on, and then you have technology that it leaves us plugged in 24/7. So the idea that you can compartmentalize on that level is just ridiculous to me. So I felt like there was a shift happening, that employees were beginning to have more of a voice about the fact that, no, we can't just, clock in and clock out like the Flintstones and leave our personal lives behind us. And then the other piece was, I actually, just as we met on LinkedIn, I met another woman, Camille Tootie, on LinkedIn a few years ago. She's an editor-in-chief in the technology space and really smart, fun woman. We got to be friends and we started to talk. And the more you develop a friendship and your friendship evolves, you learn about each other's personal traumas. And you just say, why aren't we talking about this? Like, we need to talk more about this. And so there was that, and the confluence of knowing what it's like to feel isolated, which I don't think is unique to me. But I know, you're aware I'm a rare mom. I have a daughter with a rare disease. And the best example I can have about how powerful sharing your story is that you can help others. And so I can remember many nights awake with my daughter, not having the answers, not being able to fix the pain, and feeling so isolated. And the moment I met another woman who had a child my age with the same struggle, the burden was lightened. It just felt like somebody knew who and what I was going through. And so I feel like our tagline is life is hard as F, because it's messy.
Yeah.
It is. So let's help support each other. Let's be realistic about it and stop hiding behind, like, this is the fabric. This is our DNA. This makes us who we are. This is where we get our strength. This is where we get our resilience. This is where we get our empathy. So share your stories, normalize it so we can all talk about it, because so many people are suffering in silence. And so that was a long answer. You can tell I'm passionate about it. And so that's really what got us started.
I love your answer. Actually, I think that women, and again, we're on the subject of women. Let's talk about women. I think women in particular only let certain people see certain pieces of us. It's rare that we let people see all of us. That's at least in my experience. And I was thinking about it when you were talking about finding that other mom. And I was thinking about when I've gone to my high school reunions. And I'm always attracted to the people that were like my friends in elementary school. Yeah. There's something so honest about those relationships, because they knew kind of what formed you. Yeah. And I always find that interesting, because I don't see those people. We always say, oh, we're going to get together again. It was so great to see you. And then 10 years later, we'll do it again. And it's like, I haven't missed a beat with them. Yeah. And I was just thinking about how we don't let people we let them see segments of us.
Yeah. I think that's why, like, from my perspective, having my siblings is so special because you can go back to and draw on the memories, and you know the reality of what you went through and what you did, and you can share those stories.
Hmm.
So
Yeah.
I don't know. I have an only child, so I don't know what she's going to do in that regard. But my siblings are pretty important to me for that reason.
Well, my sister's my best friend as well, and I also have an only child, but so does she, and so now they're like brothers. So
Oh,
it actually worked out just fine.
worked out beautifully.
It
Couldn't have
really
worked out
did.
better.
It really did. Okay, so you mentioned that you're a rare mom, which is something I know about you because your child has a rare disease. Let's see if I can actually say it right. It's Sjogren's, right?
You nailed it. Well done.
I remember a video you did where you explained how to pronounce it, and I'm like,
Yeah.
it's stuck in my head. So
Good.
tell us what that, and it's pediatric Sjogren's as well,
Yeah.
which is apparently an even rarer condition. So can you
Yeah.
tell us a little bit about that?
Sure. So pediatric Sjogren's is a rare disease. There are 300 kids diagnosed worldwide, and it is a systemic autoimmune disease. So it affects every major organ and every system in your body. And so children manage pain that's on the same level as a kidney stone or childbirth, and debilitating fatigue, which a nap or a good night's sleep is just not gonna fix. And so if you were to Google Sjogren's, what you'll find is that adult version is not rare. So if you Google Sjogren's, what you likely will come away with is, well, what's the big deal? That's kind of like an old lady disease. It's primarily diagnosed in your, midlife, and its hallmark symptoms are dry eyes and dry mouth. And you think, what's the big deal? Well, let's just take those two. If that's all it is, if you're walking around feeling like you have sand in your eyes, or you can't chew food because you have no saliva, you have to use water to chew and get food down, that's pretty horrific. Um, and so I don't know. I think I was surprised. I mean, because I know when my daughter was first diagnosed, that's when I went to Google and I was like, oh, well, this isn't so bad. But it just didn't parallel what I was seeing at home. And so I could go on and on about these incredible little humans and warriors that are battling this disease. My daughter, I think, she's been through things that some adults haven't had to endure, and she still makes me so proud. She's an honor roll student. She still draws down straight A's. And there's just, I think in some ways, see, you've hit on two of my passions, the whole mental health and then pediatric Sjogren's. I get so excited. I think in some ways, in a weird way, maybe I was chosen for this because I have what it takes to bring the awareness. I've learned to fundraise. I've learned how to use my social media presence, and I have been able to have an impact. And so what started with me finding one other woman in Pennsylvania, we now have 180 families out of the 300 in a support group. We've raised a lot of money, and we've actually been able to get research grants around it. And I'm excited about the impact we're having. And so I want to find a cure.
It just gave me chills.
Thank you.
That's very exciting. So
Thank you.
I think what you're saying is so important. And I no child should have to live with that. But what you're saying is a message that people need to hear. If you encounter a problem, there's somebody else out there that has the same problem.
Yeah.
You just have to find them.
Yeah.
And you do need to find your people, and you need to create those opportunities for support. And then once you have those people, instead of just talking about the problem, you need to start talking about the solutions.
Yeah.
And I think that, again, I'm going to generalize this, but I think as a society, we tend to focus on a problem and we beat the problem to death, but we're not looking for solutions.
Yeah, it's easy to get caught in that, I guess, kind of circle of all the why nots. It's easy. I think that's a human thing to do. But at some point, I think just a frustration level hits, and it's like, all right, it's me. It's me. We're gonna find a way to make some progress here.
So how old was your daughter when she was diagnosed?
She was 8, and she is 16 now, and she's doing really well. Yeah.
Was it a long path to getting a diagnosis since it's so rare?
For her, she was on the fast track. She got diagnosed in a year. Most kids, really, it's a ping pong match. And I've had one child in my group that it took 9 years to get diagnosed after several bouts with meningitis. So the disease can affect everything. But I'll share a recent win. So last week, I talked to a mom who works in a pediatrician's office, and her daughter went to the pediatrician. Pediatrician had just read an article, which is the whole part of awareness, and he suspected Sjogren's. They were diagnosed in a week, and that means so much, because then we can get in there with the right treatments and hopefully stave off some of the more serious complications. So yeah, we are having an impact.
I love it. I love it. So that ties really well into your podcast. I mean, because you've had a trauma as a mother with a daughter or with a child who has had a disease. You had to experience the trauma of your daughter going through this. Yeah. And the more you share that part of yourself with the world, the more people you actually help.
Yes, it comes full circle. It really does. It's so hard to, that's why what I would share with people, it's so hard to be vulnerable. It's so hard to share those hard things about yourself. But if you can find the courage, you will find someone else that needed that in their life that day, in that moment, and it came right on time. So be brave.
Well, as a controlling controller, if you were to do a personality test on me, I have in the past had a tendency to hold everything in. I don't tell anybody what I'm feeling, what I'm thinking. I'm just a doer, and I'm a fixer, and I'm going to get stuff done. And I think just through the pandemic, I was just worn down by all of that. And I was I just couldn't. Yeah. I just couldn't keep it all inside anymore. And I probably scared a few people, because I'm like, I just need to tell you how I'm feeling.
Yeah. Yeah. Or you're going to combust. I mean, you just can't bottle that stuff in or manage it and be in control all of the time. Eventually things start going a little haywire, and you don't start feeling you start not feeling yourself. And it's just, I don't know, snowballs. So the more 100%. We can share.
And the more I shared, not only the better I felt, but I think I was able to help some other people as well, maybe directly or indirectly, because they were like, oh gosh, I've had that situation, or I felt that way too. And it's okay. I'm not the only one.
Yeah. I would say I have been shocked at the Let's Not Talk About It podcast, and the number of people in my circle who I thought I knew everything came out and said, I'm so glad you talked about this. I struggle with this. And I'm like, just shocked that I'm just hearing it. So yeah.
I love that. I love that. All righty. So let me see.
This is so fun.
Okay. So the common theme of Sharon is actually helping people. I mean, you're clearly, as you identified in the very beginning, you're a very empathetic person. You care about others deeply, and you want everybody to have the best experience that they can. So what is one piece of advice you can give our audience to help remind people to keep people first, to remember that everyone's a person, they're not a transaction, they're not a means to an end, but we need to remember that people are just people.
Yeah. I just go back to work on that empathy, because I think, I used to think empathy was innate. No, you can learn empathy. And I think if you ask yourself, just put yourself in someone else's shoes. What would you want? What would your plan be? How would something make you feel? Give grace, be kind, assume good intent, and listen. I think probably the biggest thing is just listen. People feel important when they feel heard. So just listen and do the right thing.
You're getting some lovely comments.
I'm not even seeing, but thank you.
That's okay. So I think people over everything, put people first. I think that people are not a means to an end. And I think that if you keep that in mind, you can still make hard decisions, whether it's as an employee or as an employer, and be kind in the process.
I mean, I'm going to just jump on one more piece of that, and that's from the employer perspective. I'll tell you, the bond that I have with the one manager and leader who is now a longtime friend, even through a layoff, a longtime friend, was because he listened. And he said, when my daughter was going through the struggles, he gave me the permission. He was human. Don't worry about email. Don't worry about voicemail. You need to be with your daughter. I've got your back. And so if you want a retention strategy as an employer, it's all about listening and being human and doing and saying yes when you can. So
Yep, I agree.
yeah.
I agree 100%. Okay, so are you ready? She's like, am I ready for what?
Go.
Okay.
What?
Yeah, no. So I always like to close out my podcast with my 5 burning questions. A couple of them are always the same, and then I always tailor a couple of them for my guests. So first one never changes because it just ties into the whole podcast, which is, what is your favorite food in the world and can you cook it?
Cookies. Oh my gosh, especially this time of year. And I can make any kind of cookie. I love cookies.
So have you already baked some Christmas cookies?
No, it's going to be this weekend, and I'm making some bourbon pecan shortbread cookies that I cannot wait for.
Those sound delicious. Well, I'm meeting a couple girlfriends tonight, and we're making gingerbread biscotti. Had to remember what we were doing.
Ooh, that'll be good with some tea.
Yeah, so we're gonna do a little gift back. So we do that once a year, or obviously we don't do it in the middle of summer. We do it at the holiday season for gifts. But I love to bake too.
That's awesome. Right.
So what is the one character trait you admire most in other people and why?
I like charismatic people that are good communicators. Some people just have such a talent around communicating that everyone feels heard. And they also at the same time are able to be very clear in what they want. And so I really admire that. And I strive to, when I meet people like that, I'm always in awe, like, gosh, I wish I could communicate like that.
Yeah, that is a wonderful quality. Well, if I were to turn the mirror on you, what is the quality or the characteristic in yourself that you're most proud of and why?
I think probably empathy and loyalty. I know I can't ever narrow it down to one. Empathy and loyalty. Okay. I'm so empathetic to what's going on with people, and I'm so loyal. I honor my commitments. If I commit, I don't let you down. And I think that's kind of rare in my experience.
I would agree with you. I do think it's rare. And again, I think it's something that has gotten lost in the last 10 years or so. It used to be a big deal. Yeah. And now it just seems to be a little bit transient. So I appreciate loyalty as well. That's an awesome quality.
Oh, thanks.
All right. So I couldn't ask you the animal question because that one was just way too obvious. So, so if you could own any vehicle, can be any type of transportation in the world.
Oh gosh.
What would it be?
So I'm not really a car person. So, I'm more of a plant person. Like if I could pick any plant, it would be an oak leaf hydrangea. Like I'm really focused on getting that planted soon. But I think if it was a car, I'm going to sound like such a nerd.
You don't have to be a car.
Okay.
Any form of transportation. You could be a car. You could be a boat. You could be a motorcycle.
Well, I want to fly.
It's not that you can be it. You can have it. If you just magically, rub that magic bottle, what would show up in your driveway?
I want a self-driving vehicle, whatever form of transportation that I can fly in, I can maneuver wherever I want to go. And I want it to have a quiet cabin. I know that sounds real sexy, but I want the cabin to be quiet. I hate road noise.
I love that. See? So it's a wide open question, and it tells us a lot about you.
Hashtag nerd alert. Yeah.
I love it. Okay. So what is your secret talent or something people would be surprised to learn about you? We already know you have an identical twin, so you can't use that one.
I can still do the splits.
Oh my goodness. That is seriously?
I can still do the splits on both legs. I've kept my being limber.
Were you a gymnast?
Yeah. No, I just have always been flexible. And now, like, as I'm getting older, dare I say, I really want to maintain my flexibility. So I can still do the splits. That's kind of top secret.
I don't think I could do the splits when I was 7. So that's very impressive.
I'll go back to one thing I haven't talked about is how competitive I am. And I can remember like 8 years old as a majorette, there was a competition. Whoever could get into the splits first got this gigantic candy cane. I don't really even like candy canes, but I had to win. So from then on, I can do the splits.
That's amazing. Okay. So last question. who is the one person that you've connected with on LinkedIn, or maybe you follow a podcast that you would most enjoy meeting in real life, sitting down, having a cup of coffee and a deep conversation with?
Claude Silver with VaynerMedia, the chief heart officer. Everything she posts just resonates so much with me. I can't wait to see what she does and how she transforms business with her thought process and her methods. And I would love to meet her. I think she's amazing.
That is a absolutely wonderful suggestion. I love it when people suggest things. I know who it is. And it's not somebody I follow, and I need to do that. So
Yeah,
it's always great content for me. So if people want to know more about your consulting practice, or
Mm.
maybe they want to know more about the Pediatric Sjogrens,
Oh,
what
yeah.
would be the best way for them to contact you?
Well, I'm on LinkedIn, and I'm always on LinkedIn every day. So send me a message there, Sharon Tiger on LinkedIn. I have a website, sharontiger.com. And yeah, and if you want to know about Sjogrens, you can go to sjogrens.org, and there's a whole pediatric section, which is new this year. So if you're a parent and you suspect your kid might have Sjogrens, go to sjogrens.org, but you can also connect with me on LinkedIn. I'll give you the 411.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Sharon. It's been fun and informative, and we appreciate your time.
Awesome. Thank you so much for having me. This has been so much fun.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone. And I will see you after the first of the year.